Hello, good morning, and welcome to Making Sense of It. I am Mona Duncan, your moderator. Do you ever wonder why you do the things you do? Well, then this program is for you. It is our gift to you from the Glasser Institute for Choice Theory. Our mission is to facilitate a world where people make responsible choices and build healthy relationships. And each week we have a member of our staff to come on and make a presentation for us. And today's speaker is senior faculty, Sue Tomaszewski, and she's going to be talking about trust and the mystery of trust and who can we trust and do you have trust issues and that kind of thing. So it'll be very interesting. So join us and welcome Sue and welcome everyone that's here.
Okie dokie. Well, I'm going to share. And just so you know, I'm not a senior faculty. I guess I'm a junior faculty. I'm a practicum supervisor. So I'm not an instructor. All right, come on. There we go. Okay, everybody can see that?
Yes.
All right, so here we go. Well, this is something that I've just been thinking about. Like, do we take trust for granted? Do we not trust enough? Do we trust too much? And really, when we consider what trust is, that it is really a critical component for a happy, healthy life. And then we all have our trust circles. Like, who do we trust for certain things and for certain other things? So with that, I just did a little bit of research and I thought we just examine the essence of what trust is. And that it really does become one of our most important decisions, deciding who to trust. You know, and considering how important it is for us to engage in trusting and trustworthy behaviors. So it's a two-sided coin. It isn't just that we're going to trust somebody needs to be trustworthy. And then if somebody's going to trust us, do we need to be trustworthy? And so on. And then really what happens when we're confronted with betrayals that are embedded in distrust and mistrust. So some questions that I've really been asking and that I'd ask you to consider, you know, who do you trust? Who do you trust when you need something specific? You need help with something. Who do you trust when you just need someone to listen and not give advice? Who do you trust when you want advice on something professional, social, marital? And who do you trust when you just want an opinion to help you make a decision? And bottom line, do we all have different criteria for choosing whether we're going to put our trust in someone or something? What's the criteria that we've all established over our lives? So I started to have some questions. So this becomes very personal for me because it's just things that I've been reflecting on over the last little bit of time. And so, you know, if you take a look at it, you think, well, there's people are taking the word of particular media folks and that there's trusted sources. Well, others are not seeing them as they're seeing the same sources as untrustworthy. You know, and how come and really does it make any difference? You know, what radio stations do you listen to? What newspapers do you read? Whose Instagram do you check? Whose Facebook entries do you pay any attention to? And so on and so forth. And then I'm thinking about it from a safety point, you know, the traveling and socializing, and some people seem less worried. And that, you know, are they trusting people around them? And is my mistrust helpful? Is it helping me or isn't it? And then how important is trust to a relationship, to any relationships? And it was just interesting. I don't know if any of you have ever watched, you know, the show Friends. And it was just funny because the other day, I don't know, somehow or other, it was late at night. I just landed up with a repeat. And it was the one where Monica, this is Monica down here, is getting married to Chandler. There we go. And so here's the whole group of friends. But it was actually pretty funny that the episode where Monica and Chandler are getting married, Rachel was the maid of honor. And so while they're getting ready, Monica says, if anyone would please be willing to take care of her wedding dress. And Rachel goes, oh, I'll do it, Mon, I'll do it, you know. And Monica goes, anyone who's willing to help me. And obviously because she doesn't trust Rachel, because Rachel has not been one who's followed through on things that she's been asked to do. So it's just like ignoring her completely. So now as we start to look at trust and we start to look at dictionary definitions, here's just some dictionary definitions that I found. It's about a firm belief in reliability and truth and ability or strength of someone or something. And really saying, even in the dictionary, that relations have to be built on trust. And it's an assured reliance on character, on ability, on strength, or truth of someone or something. And it's to rely on truthfulness or on accuracy. It's also that to hope or expect with confidence and to place confidence, to depend. I still remember David and Roger Johnson in their cooperative learning work. They defined to be in a cooperative learning environment, there has to be trusting behavior, which is considered accepting and supportive. But if you're accepting and supportive and you don't have any trustworthy people who are open and sharing, there's something missing. So just really interesting. That just always, in its simplicity, it struck me as very refined. So other experts, when you look and say defining trust, these people have defined trust as a psychological state, and intention is built into it. And then there's automatically vulnerability based on positive expectations. And trust has to have positive expectations. And that the choice between trust and distrust is most keenly experienced in interactions with strangers, oddly enough. There's other people who say that we tend to trust strangers more readily, which is interesting. But trust in a relationship is more constrained, like in an established relationship, is more constrained by context and experience. We know the person well. So like Monica knows Rachel really well and can trust her to do certain things, but not to do others. My girlfriend's daughter is getting married and we're having a shower for her. And it's really interesting because my girlfriend trusts me to take part in certain parts of this, but not in other parts. You know, it's like, well, what are the decorations going to be on the table? No, Sue's not good at that. And Sue's not going to consider that. But can Sue buy the chocolates? Yeah, Sue can buy the chocolates. You know, can Sue get the baskets? Yes, give me a shopping list. I can do that fine. And she knows that. So no matter how strong the propensity is, people hesitate, really importantly, to trust salespersons who may have a dubious reputation or they have something underneath what they're putting before you, or friends who've disappointed them. Then contemporary research is examining trust in many domains, such as close relationships, political beliefs, community involvement, and organizational behavior. And the consequences of trust are observed in the workplace, in intimate relationships, and in society at large. So interesting, I don't know, you may or may not have seen this, but really interesting. We had our first Buffalo Bills game, you know, so football is big, and we had our first Buffalo Bills game, and that was on Sunday. So Sunday, it was a masking request order that was really given. So they weren't checking for vaccines or not vaccines. They were just saying everybody will be masked, and you'll be masked in the inside areas, and you'll be masked outside if you're sitting with people, you know, if there's people around you in less than 3 feet that you don't know. All right, well, I guess our county executive and the health commissioner didn't trust people enormously, and they sent scouts out to check, and people were not masked. People did not mask. They did not at all. So the ramifications of that are now people will be vaccinated. They will show proof of vaccine, and they will remain masked. And if you're not vaccinated, you're not going. So period, the end. So and the county executive announced it yesterday, and people were like really upset and what have you. But it's like, we gave you the opportunity, you let us down. So sorry. You know, so whether it's a punishment, whether it's coercive, I don't know, but they gave them the opportunity and just wasn't happening. Anyhow, so just an interesting little piece. The other part of this is from these people in Psychology Today. They said trust or the belief, I think this is important, belief that someone or something can be relied on to do what they say they will do. And that it's key to social relationships and a foundation for cooperation. It's critical in romantic relationships and friendships. and interactions between strangers, even in social groups. On a large scale, lack of trust in such scenarios can come with serious consequences and would likely fail to function in the absence of trust. So society would. So I'm asking people now, would behaving in a trustworthy manner then be part of someone's organized behavior system? Trust.
Yes and no.
Well, yes and no. And that's what we're considering. Would it be part of an organized behavior system? Is it something that's important? Is it something, it's not automatic, but yet, is it something that gets developed? So trust also involves a degree of vulnerability, but it is a cornerstone in social relationships, in all different types of relationships. And people who trust each other can work together more effectively. They're also more willing to share intimate information, reducing the risk of anxiety or depression, and building stronger sense of selves. So again, now, is behaving in a trusting manner a part of one's organized behavior? And now you start to look at it in terms of, is it contextual? So in other words, I have trustworthy behavior in my organized behavior system, but only with these people, only in these circumstances. I have trusting behavior in my organized behavior system in these particular circumstances with these particular people, not with those. So from Psychology Today, according to Psychology Today, these people now have said that trust in many ways is really group members deciding who trust each other will be more willing to cooperate and will thus be able to achieve more than in an individual sense. Trust is cultivating a larger sense of safety and allowing individuals to devote energy to social improvements rather than self-protection. And now here's an interesting piece from neuroscience research as of late, that trust does suggest, research suggests that that human brains are naturally prone to trust others. And they're proposing several explanations why we do trust strangers, including for mutual benefit. You know, if you do this for me, I'll do that for you. And so if we trust each other, we'll be able to make this work. And we trust others based on the assumption that doing so will likely benefit both of us. And that social norms, we trust others because we believe we're expected to. You know, we believe we're expected to trust what we read. We're supposed to trust what we hear. But as we learn, we don't trust everything now. So again, is being trusting and trustworthy, is it need satisfying? And are the people that one trusts in one's quality world? So now this gentleman is a Canadian philosopher and cognitive scientist. And he talked about some possibilities of trust, and that it's a set of behaviors such as acting in ways that depend on another. And it's a belief in a probability the person will behave in certain ways. It's an abstract mental attitude toward a proposition that someone is dependable. And it's feeling of confidence and security that a partner cares about you. And that trust is a complex neural process, which I find interesting, that binds diverse representations into a semantic pointer. So he talks about semantic pointers, and that includes emotions. So going further, that it's not just an emotional state, it's an emotional state, not just an expectation of behavior. So he talks about trust in a romantic relationship, in politics, in medical practices. If you don't trust your doctor or psychotherapist, for example, it's harder to benefit from their professional advice. He proposes that trust is a brain process, and again, talks about the semantic pointer, which is a special pattern of neural firing. And that to keep in mind, though, it's not absolute. Someone can be trusted to pick up groceries, but not necessarily to perform brain surgery. And that it does have an inextricable emotional dimension. When you trust people, you feel good about them. But mistrusting someone is not necessarily just a prediction of betrayal, but also a bad emotional feeling about the untrustworthy person. So I'm assuming this person would not be in someone's quality world. So as we go a little further, These folks, and I think this is important because it's also coming from the psychology and economics of trust. So that by trusting, the economy of a group of people, of a nation, works better. So that these folks are saying that the entire fabric of our day-to-day living rests on trust. Almost all our decisions involve trusting someone else. And that there are risks in any social situation, but that we often trust that others aren't going to attack us. They're not going to tell our secrets. They're not going to break our hearts. And without the capacity to trust, we're unable to accept any of these ordinary uncertainties. And it allows its society to invest more capital and conduct transactions. Think about the trust we put in Amazon. You order it, you pay for it, and it arrives. Okay. I had that trust with my newspaper coming every day in my blue bin at the end of my garage. It's been going to my next door neighbor over the last week. It's becoming very annoying. And I trusted when I called them and left them a message, they'd remedy it. Hasn't been remedied. Call them again. Hasn't been remedied. Call them again. Hasn't been remedied. Called this morning, got somebody, and she went, oh, okay, I'm going to talk to them again, and I will have the supervisor call you back. So I've got a little sense of trust, but I'm only giving them this much more before I cancel the paper and just go on with electronic. Okay, then trust is presupposing risk, because there's got to be a possibility for loss and regret. Without personal vulnerability, trust evolves just into confidence, which is a belief without consequences. And trust cannot exist without a positive expectation. When people trust, they accept risk because they believe they can avoid a negative outcome. And otherwise, it's self-destructive. So now we take a look at how do we decide to trust? And this is from the Trust Project at Northwestern University. They say we can think about trust in 4 different things that we consider as we decide whether or not to trust in a particular relationship. One is benevolence. Is this a kind person? One is integrity. Is this person an ethical person? Another is competence. Does this person have the ability to do what needs to be done? And the last one is predictability. Does this person behave in a way that I can consistently forecast? You know, they're not just, we don't know whether they will or they won't. So I know, and Sharon knows, working with me on the Quality School Committee, she knows when I say I will do it, I will do it. It'll be at the last moment, but I will do it. It'll always come through. We're presenting, you will have it. You just won't have it in a timely manner, but you will have it. All right, so now there's a lot of talk about rebuilding trust, but what's interesting is very often the talk about rebuilding trust very often is in a romantic relationship. So very often, so I kind of took some liberties with it, and that the quote being, although it may seem that all is forgiven and back to normal, doubts and hurt often continue in the aggrieved person's mind and heart. It may take months and even years for a serious wound to heal. So if it's really, really serious and the wound is there, it may not just, the trust may not be rebuilt. And that trust is actually compared as being delicate, and it's easy to break and difficult to restore, like a wrinkled piece of paper. You crumble up the piece of paper, you straighten it all out. It's never like it was before you crinkled it. So when trust has been lost, it is difficult to restore, but it's not impossible to rebuild. So I've taken some liberties here because it's not just forgive the other person, but forgive yourself. It's difficult to restore it, except that we're human beings and we're bound to make mistakes. So, and trust yourself and each other once again, that believing that lying and betraying other people is not what we were meant to do. And that to listen to each other's anger and hurt feelings and empathize and ask what's needed from each other to prevent a reoccurrence, and be conscientious in showing trustworthiness, and make heartfelt apologies, expressing regret. I know there were things that in my marriage, I know there were things that when Tom was sick, he would bring back up, and it's like, sweetheart, I thought we settled this like really long time ago. You know, like you're a Roman Catholic. I thought you're supposed to turn the other cheek and forgive. Like, this is ridiculous. This is years later. We settled all this. And it's like, well, this is just reminding me of it. Okay. You know, so it was still there years and years and years later. And continue to have open and honest communication. So it made me think, I started to think about possible questions. These may look familiar to some of us. Well, how will trust help me get what I want? Notice the quality world question there. And nope, let me go back. How have I trusted before? So what do I want? What have I done before? And has it worked? So a self-evaluation procedure. Have my previous trusting behaviors help me? And is it time for another plan to trust in a different way, or possibly to trust different people? So just some quotes to go with it. You may be deceived if you trust too much, but you will live in torment if you do not trust enough. And trust, but verify, which is actually really interesting. When I first started career-wise as a presenter, one of the men who mentored me, he said, when you get evaluations, pay attention to all the evaluations, but don't enormous thought until it's at least 4 people have said it. Now, I'm assuming if there's only 4 of us here, 5 of us here, then I'm assuming it would be 2 people. And it's not to say we're going to ignore people, pay attention to it, but verify. Is this everybody, or is somebody just having a bad day? And then the other quote is, trust is not simply a matter of truthfulness or even constancy. It's also a matter of amity and goodwill. We trust those who have our best interests at heart, and we mistrust those who seem deaf to our concerns. So I don't know if I've answered anything. I don't know if the research helps. I still am sort of scratching my head and thinking, but trust does seem to be a very important component of our lives daily and in the relationships we have. So with that, I hope it provides some thinking questions to ask. And I will sign off.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I really appreciated the fact that you brought in not only trusting someone, but something.
Mm-hmm.
Because, will the chair hold you, or will the limb break?
Mm-hmm.
Is this product more trustworthy than that product? So I like the fact that you really broadened it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if you would define for our audience what you mean whenever you're talking about organized behavior.
Okay. As part of the behavior system, we'll tend to talk about it in the choice theory, and the whole loop, to think about, we have organized behaviors, which are, in a sense, they're habits. In a sense, they're well established. They're behaviors we can count on, as opposed to in the creative system, when something we're doing isn't working and we need to come up with something else, we've determined there's another way to do it. Our creative system will kick in and, in a sense, do some reorganizing of behaviors or create new behaviors. I'm hoping that helped.
Okay, so then you're looking at those habits, they become organized, and that sometimes, whether it's us or whether it's sometimes someone else, sometimes they fail us.
Yeah, and sometimes I don't know whether it's they're failing us, or again, is it contextual? Is it contextual? Like patience isn't much in my organized behavior system, and I can be patient. I certainly can be, but I know Sharon knows the other day when we were doing our quality school meeting, and there was just a point where we were like, well, okay, maybe we'll do this next time. And I just completely lost it and said, no, finish it. We have to finish this now. Enough. I can't stand this another minute. And it was like, oops, sorry for not being as patient as I might choose to be. So it's contextual. I think they forgave me, but okay. How about the trust we display in technologies? Does that maybe define our trust? Did you see the chat?
In general.
Yeah, okay.
Define our trust to ourselves and then our trust to technology in general.
I wonder, because we do seem to trust in technology, you know, we will trust in technology that it will work. But again, when it doesn't work, you go, well, okay, maybe I'm not going to trust this so much at this point in time. But on the other hand, I don't know how many of us, like, you know, when it says, do you want us to save your password? Do you want us to save your credit card? We say no. Like, I'll trust, but only to an extent. I'm not going to trust it completely.
Trust and verify. Okay, well, thank you very much. This has been very enlightening and gives us a lot to think about. So we're going to close the recording, and those of you that are here live, please stay tuned because you can have a chance to chat with Sue individually. So thank you for being here, and good mental health.